so, you already know that. And I'm a Berkeley student, and I was kind of tasked with this assignment to interview somebody who is kind of in a field that I kind of want to go into. And
Cool.
as someone, as like kind of a jack of all trades, master of none right now, arranging for bands and a cappella groups, but also like producing music and all these different things, I thought it'd be good to talk to you because you have produced vocals, you have arranged for them, you've written books about it, all of these different things, and I thought it'd be really cool. So I kind of
Great.
have like some interview questions.
And I'm very happy to help. So what major do you have there? Not that it specifically matters in what your career is or whatever. I'm just kind of curious what you started with there.
My major is contemporary writing and production. I basically
Cool.
learn how to arrange everything.
Yes.
And then learn how to produce it as well.
That's great and super helpful for what it is you want to do. And knowing how to arrange instruments, for instance, makes you a better a cappella arranger and vice versa.
So one of the, first question I have is sort of when did it start? When did that moment happen where you kind of were like, this is a cappella, this is what I really want to do, like, this is what I want to put my all into?
I always loved singing from the time I was very, very young, and then through church choir and San Francisco Boys Chorus and the barbershop quartet that I kept going for 4 years while I was in high school. I think the clarity moment of like, did I always want to be a musician? Yes. Did I always want to sing and change the world and all that? No question. But it was after kind of stumbling upon vocal percussion and vocal instrumental sounds and a new way of arranging, containing them, kind of taking what was traditionally mostly a 4-part style, with the soloist and occasional additional parts, and really turning it into 12-part arrangements and being able to mimic instruments and create walls of sound. And when I was in college in the middle of the 80s, late 80s, honestly, the songs that were being sung by everybody a cappella were very vocal. So it was like For the Longest Time and The Lion Sleeps Tonight and these songs that were already, if not a cappella adjacent. And I just wanted to arrange Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Peter Gabriel, all of the cool college rock that's blasting out of everyone's dorms. And when I figured out how to do that, I thought like I had lightning in a bottle, and if people only knew about this, like it would explode and change everything. And nobody agreed with me. Everybody thought I was crazy and kind of laughed at me, but it didn't stop me from doing what I needed to do.
Nice. And now look at where a cappella is today.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I also look back at myself and like, wow, I was crazy for thinking that I could do this, and wise and lucky and all of these things as well. But the world could have turned out differently. I just loved it so much that even if nobody really ever, if this didn't catch on in a big way, and I was still really happy. And I looked at my life before Pitch Perfect and Sing Off and all this stuff and just said, like, I'm so happy. This is exactly what I wanted to do. And I was performing and touring and working with groups and publishing music and all that kind of stuff. So it didn't have to happen on a huge scale for me to be happy. And but I'm glad that it did, because now everybody knows what a cappella is, and so many more people are singing and enjoying it.
Nice. All right. For when you started writing, what were your kind of biggest influences starting off writing a cappella?
Well, I started off listening to lots of a cappella. In fact, if you've seen the Pitch Perfect movies, the character of Benji, the really nerdy guy, is based on me. In high school, I collected as much a cappella as I could find. I just loved it. And there were a couple groups, the Bobs here based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the Nylons, a Canadian group, that were enormous influences on me, as well as the college a cappella group I eventually joined, Tufts Beelzebubs, who were the model for the troublemakers in the movie. But I listened to the Singers Unlimited, and I listened to the King's Singers, and I listened to the Manhattan Transfer, and I listened to other college groups and other pro groups, and really tried to get an understanding of what makes this work. I knew that I loved it. Every time I heard it was like a shaft of light from the heavens coming down and being like, this is amazing. But how do you use the voices? How do you arrange these things? I also dug around and tried to find as much sheet music as I possibly could, and honestly, almost nothing was published. And that's actually one of the first things I did when I graduated. I started a publishing company and put out arrangements for The Longest Time and The Lion Sleeps Tonight and all of these songs. You could not buy a 4-part and any number of parts for any voicing arrangement of The Lion Sleeps Tonight, which is madness. The song's been around since, had been around for 50 years. So the publishing world had really underperformed and wasn't paying really much attention to anything that was going on in that world, even although there was starting to be some a cappella on the radio waves with Boyz II Men. I mean, it's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. You couldn't buy an arrangement of that. Thank You from their album that was, early hip hop beatboxing and when I couldn't buy it. So I just felt like there's so much work to be done.
Oh yeah, that kind of leads into one of my other questions of like when you're kind of arranging, writing for a cappella, would you say that like what is your favorite kind of thing to do when you're writing a cappella? Like what is it? Like for example, my favorite thing is to write a unison and then spread it open, Like just like adding that in whenever I can for a little dramatic effect. It's just always so fun.
And that works great. There's not like one particular brushstroke that I'm in love with, because for me when I'm arranging, creating the emotional connection between the singers and the audience. And for instance, to use your example, some groups can do that gloriously and create this transcendent moment, and other groups will fall flat on their face. It'll just kind of fizzle, right? So it's a great effect when it works, but when it doesn't work, it kind of shows a group's Achilles heel, their ability to sing unisons. And I mean, there are transcendent unisons. I'd say one of my favorite examples of that thing you're talking about is if you've heard Take Six's version of the Star Spangled Banner, they sing unison all the way until Rocket's Red Glare. And so their unisons are flawless. Their unified sense of stylizing and their phrasing and all that kind of stuff is of course impossibly so. Then when they open up into 6-part harmony and sound like the same person singing 6 voices, right? I mean, that's one of the things that makes Take Six so great. It's just one of those shivers moments that you get. So I completely agree that is an awesome skill to have. But a new high school a cappella wouldn't be able to pull it off the same way. The unison would be more difficult because of their ability to sing in different parts of the range, the tessitura differences and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I really keep as my North Star that even the simplest of arrangements can be really lovely if it's paired with the group that is at that level, then, if that makes sense. It's like a really simple pasta or a really simple burger recipe for someone who's just learning how to cook because they are not ready to make beef Wellington.
Oh yeah. So like what is it? Would you say that's like extremely important to know the group and how they operate before arranging for them?
If you can know the group and how they operate before arranging for them, it is of great value. It's not impossible to arrange for a group that you don't know. Let's say you're arranging for a jazz band, to use a non-acapella example. You're arranging for a high school jazz band. You could probably hit near the center of the target without getting a bullseye because young saxophonists are probably going to be able to do like this, and let's assume the pianist is maybe a little better, but we're not going to put tons of crazy Oscar Peterson runs in his part and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And don't put the trumpets way too high or else you're just going to have that kind of like shrill squelching going on. So it's, as opposed to if you're asked to arrange for, a modern awesome jazz band or the, Dirty Dozen jazz band, right? Or the one in New Orleans, whatever it is, if you have a general sense of where they live or what level they're at, that'll often get you close. But then if you can actually talk to the director of the group and then they can tell you, I'll switch back to a cappella. Our basses can sing an E flat, but honestly, they don't really have any resonance below an F, and they're not going to be on microphone for this song. So it's probably better to, have that be the lowest note, et cetera, et cetera. With different general ranges, our alto section is really good, but they don't have a very high belt range, so I wouldn't put them in that. And our tenors have a little trouble with rhythm, so it's better, whatever it is. Or we have like this awesome mezzo, like gotta give her the solo, even though it's traditionally, it's a Journey song and Steve Perry sang it. She can sing it in the same key and it's great in a range, but I'd move it up a half step or a whole step, and that's great for the basses and all that kind of stuff. Any more info you can get, it just gets you closer and closer to that bullseye of the target, right? And sometimes when you're arranging for another group, it's a base hit, it's not a home run, but you're also blind. You haven't worked with this group, you're not going to be in the rehearsals, etc. But sometimes you really can, because of your knowledge of what standard people can do and information you can get from the director, you're able to get something that really fits them much more like a custom tailored suit as opposed to something just off the rack.
Has there ever been a moment where you felt like you were like way off the target when arranging? Because I feel like I've had those moments for sure.
Oh, 100%. Let me tell you a true story. So this group, the Nylons, one of the biggest inspirations when I was young. Several years later, after I'd started Casa and was arranging and traveling and touring and blah, 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 they contacted me and they wanted me to arrange a song for an upcoming Christmas album. And I'm like, it's so awesome to arrange for your heroes. There were different members in the group, but still an original member or two. And it's like, wow, I get to do something for them. So I'm like, 4 parts, Great. I know their sound, I know their style, I want to make something really beautiful. They wanted the song White Christmas. Great. I arranged a version of White Christmas that I thought that I was proud of. And I sent it to them and they hated it. I mean, they said, no, we're not going to do it. I said, oh, is there anything I can change? Anything about it? They said, no, just don't like it at all. It's not right for us. Bummer. Then a world-class barbershop quartet reached out to me, the Gas House Gang, who were friends, and said, we've got this Christmas album. Do you have anything laying around? We need an extra song for it. And I said, I have this arrangement of White Christmas that I really like, but the Nylons hated it, so you be a judge. Anyway, they recorded it, and it was beautiful, and now it's probably my most sung arrangement in the barbershop world. Plus, I just put in an SATB voicing, and now it's sung by choirs and whatever all around the world. Like the LA Master Chorale would sing it at the end of their concert each year for several years. So turns out I didn't think I was crazy, and in this particular case, I wasn't crazy. I just missed the target for what they were looking for. I don't know if they were looking for something much more like the version in Home Alone that's by the Drifters, you know, something like that. I don't know. Because what I did was much more close harmony, beautiful, Singers Unlimited, whatever. So yeah, so sometimes people ask for something and they don't give you the real information about what they want. And there was another group that I produced their album. I did a lot of arrangements with them. I loved, you know, working with them and all this. And they wanted a version of Your Song. And so I did an arrangement for them that I really liked and I was proud of. And it had kind of a Boys to Men feel, because I was trying to make it different from the Elton John, which is very piano-based, and as a result might feel more static with voices. So I gave it a little more of like kind of a finger snap and street corner sound, which I thought they would nail. And they were like, no, we didn't want that. We wanted it to sound like the version in Moulin Rouge, which I don't know if the version of Moulin Rouge would translate that well. It's kind of sparse and whatever. But anyway, I missed the target there, but they didn't tell me. So what I do recommend as an arranger is just poke around and ask some questions. Do you have someone in particular you want for the solo? Is there any version of this or style that you're looking at? Is there anything about the original that you don't like? You know, et cetera, et cetera. Who's the audience? What are you singing it for? You know, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I keep on hearing
the more
that.
info you get, the better it'll hopefully play out.
Yeah, I always hear that, like, always ask for a reference track when you're doing anything for anybody, because, what is it, you end up working for people sometimes that don't always know exactly what they're talking about. Has that happened in a sense?
All the time.
Yeah?
All the time, especially if you're doing arrangements for, like, a corporate event. So, for many, many years, I was in the first a cappella group with a vocal percussionist, the House Jacks, and we toured all around, and we would sometimes get hired to do corporate events, and I'd arrange something, and it would be like, oh, it's really good, but it's kind of busier than we want. And they couldn't really be any more specific than that. Or honestly, when I was arranging for the Pitch Perfect movies, and doing the finale, and you know, the Barton Bellis finale, Ed Boyer, who I worked with closely, music director of the Beelzebubs a dozen years after me, he jokes that it was like I was playing whack-a-mole, because the director, Jason Moore, who did a beautiful job with the movie, and I have the utmost respect for him, he didn't know exactly, he'd worked on Broadway, but he wanted things and he didn't exactly know how to say them, so I kept bringing him different versions, and it was like, no, that's it, want more of this or whatever. And he also said some things that were exactly wrong. Like he said, no arpeggiations, I hate that, it sounds barbershoppy, I don't want it. And in the end, that party in the USA, he was like, I love it.
Okay.
You know? So sometimes people say they don't want mushrooms on their burger, and then that's their favorite thing. So you never know.
Yeah, I keep on seeing that happen to my friends. But like, of Pitch Perfect and all those different things, what were some of like your favorite moments? Would you say that Pitch Perfect was when career kind of took off, or when did that start?
Well, I'd been working on the TV show The Sing Off, which I just adored. I mean, sometimes there were elements of the politics and whatever on the kind of business side of making a television show that were frustrating, and you had to thread the needle and make all of the executives happy. But working with all the singers was a dream come true, and I'm so proud of what we were able to do and launch groups like Pentatonics and et cetera, and really show America and then the world, because I made the show in South Africa and the Netherlands and mainland China as well. Show the world what a cappella is now. Show what contemporary a cappella is. So that was a huge like flag in the moon. Hey guys, this is what this thing is. And a lot of people saw that show, 10 million people in the US, you know, seasons 1 and 2. And yet Pitch Perfect, I think, is the perpetual evergreen machine that everyone sees and says, that's a cappella. I love that. I want to sing sing that in college. I want to sing it in high school. And they watch the movie over and over again because it's also funny and get that sense of all the awesome nerds, some being great in the individual parts. Like, it says a lot about this world, this a cappella community, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that was a huge success. But I'll be honest, I thought it was going direct to DVD, and making the first movie was really challenging because only one of the 10 Barton Bellas not only had ever sung a cappella before, had ever really sung in choir. And so it was like pulling teeth. And there was a month of a cappella boot camp, and I barely slept. And it was a really tough experience because I care so much. And so I just poured my heart into it. But the Troublemakers were much better than the Bellas. And it was like, Jason pulled me aside, was like, women need to win the movie. And I'm like, I know. But making the second movie was a blast because I knew how each one of the Bellas learned, like, this person needs recording parts, this person needs sheet music, this person needs one-on-one coaching, et cetera, et cetera. And that made it much, much easier and was so much fun.
Nice. Goodness, there's so much that goes into that. Have fun here. So from, what is it? Pitch Perfect and those, that was kind of like the building blocks of collegiate a cappella. Has your style of writing kind of changed throughout that? Because being in the East Coast area, I get to hear like the Harvard Opportunes, you know, and the Nor'easters, Upper Structure, and their arrangements are crazy.
Of course. I would say elements of my arranging style have absolutely changed over the past several decades because I'm getting up there now, and I've been doing this, since 1984. I started arranging, so it's been a little while. There's no doubt that a cappella has changed and pop music has changed, and I have incorporated elements of these things in my work. But then there's still also some things that are traditional. Doo-wop, barbershop, vocal jazz, close harmony writing. These things, these 20th century styles, it's really good to also be able to go back and create things or sections of songs or have your arranging informed by them while at the same time, reach into modern stylistic pies and pull out some goodies. For instance, when they were on the sing-off and they were just met each other, just formed, Pentatonics often had dubstep breakdowns when they were working on the show, 2010, 2011 or whatever, when dubstep was big. But they don't do that anymore now, 15 years later or whatever, because dubstep isn't big. So one of the best things about contemporary a cappella is that it's constantly churning and changing and growing as popular music shifts. And that was one of my biggest hopes and goals with the entire community, is that rather than me kind of like capturing one moment, one style, that it would constantly roll and change. And I absolutely intentionally do that as well with my arranging. But of course, what you can do with 3 voices as opposed to 12 voices, what you can do with middle schoolers as opposed to a professional ensemble, these things are wildly different as well. So maybe it's sometimes hard to tell my arrangement. I don't intentionally have a signature style. I try to be more like artists who find themselves painting or drawing or whatever in a variety of different styles and using different media, because that's what suits the situation best.
Would you have any advice or tips for up-and-coming vocal arrangers like me or my friends?
Be in as many vocal ensembles as you can. Small ones, large ones, short projects, classical choirs, vocal jazz ensembles, South African, mbube and kamaya, like anything and anywhere, because the more you're inside the chords, the better you'll be as an arranger. And I'm not just talking about rehearsals, I'm talking about performing as well. I think there are definitely some really lovely arrangers who competed in the ICCA or made these complicated crystalline arrangements that they rehearsed 8 months and sang only 3 songs for most of the year. I personally think that's crazy, and I created the ICCA, so, that's a whole different discussion. But they create arrangements that are intentionally as challenging as they can be to try to show off for judges or whatever. But honestly, if you're in a group and you're out there at a festival and you're on the stage and you need to draw a crowd, you don't want a 12-part complicated moody arrangement about the nuances of questioning oneself or whatever. No, you want to just start going do 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 do. You want 4-part uptown funk. What's going to work well? And you learn how to shorten your arrangements. You learn how to arrange within people's vocal ranges. You learn how to arrange a song that can be learned in a night, et cetera, et cetera. So don't just rehearse, also perform, also get yourself out there in a wide range of situations and styles, and not just competition formats, but just sing for the public. Because honestly, the most popular restaurant in the world is McDonald's. So it's good to be able to make a Michelin star restaurant gourmet meal, but sometimes people just want a good burger. I'm not saying McDonald's is a good burger, but hopefully you take my analogy, right? And make something that's good and quick and fast and delicious. So I'd say being on the singer side of things as much as possible is really useful. Number two, when you're arranging, as much as possible, get the immediate feedback from the rehearsal. If you're not in the group that's learning it, or you're not the music director that's teaching it, go to a rehearsal. Just sit there, fly on the wall, and see what it is that you wrote on the paper and how that's being translated into their voices. Not only what works and doesn't work, but what do they misinterpret? Or you're like, oh crap, I forgot to put breaths in there, or I meant a dynamic thing that I thought was obvious, but they're not doing it. I'm not saying that you want to overnote your arrangements where every single moment is, and this is staccato and this is marcato, and end up with this arrangement that's crazy and full of all this stuff, but rather what matters and what doesn't matter. What assumptions do people make that are different than the ones you did, so that you know you need to put that stuff down. And then you're also able, if you're a fly on the wall and like that's not working, change it to this syllable, or whatever it is for those kind of pieces. And that's good for the stage, also rehearsal format, but see how it actually translates on stage, because people get nervous, vocal range, and they breathe more quickly because they get excited. Their amygdala tells them, fight or flight, and then that limits a little bit what they're able to do. So maybe something that was really great in rehearsal is not as good because it's pushing them a little bit too far, or maybe the arrangement is impressive technically but doesn't really tap into their emotions, and so you realize I got too heady in this kind of stuff. So I think that's number two. And use that feedback loop to change your arrangement and tweak it and make it whatever. Number three, it says get your arrangements out there in front of people. And what I mean with that is post everything you possibly can on ArrangeMe.com or any other site where you have the opportunity to publish your music. Like, yes, you only make 10% of it, but I would price it lower and hope people stumble across it, and then put a little note in the back and say like, hey, if you end up posting this or recording it or whatever, drop me a line, here's my socials, or here's my whatever, or please tag me, because I'd love to see it. Because then you start to see, this is my stuff popping up here, it's popping up there, and you never know where. And the other thing I'd say is, as an arranger, you're arranging for your groups at Berkeley or whatever, but reach out to your old high school group, reach out to other groups in the area, in the region, and rather than just say, hey, I'm an arranger. And by the way, the big times to arrange for everybody is August and like January, the beginning of both semesters, and let them know like, I'm available, but in addition to this arrangement for free, I'll do a 15-minute coaching with you, or I'll come to your rehearsal if it's nearby, and so you get that feedback loop, which is good for you, but it's a huge value added for the group, and that may push them over the line into liking your arrangements, and then repeat business. So then you've got that going, and then word of mouth spreads and it kind of builds out. But the reason I say start regionally is, you do an arrangement for someone in Singapore, you do an arrangement for someone in Finland, you can't be there. And honestly, coaching a rehearsal over Zoom is really hard. It's really hard to hear. Sometimes it gets so loud, it's silent, it just becomes silent and the sound drops out for a while or whatever. So being able to be in the room with everybody is really useful. And the last thing I'd say is, as much as you can, be a part of the a cappella community. I'm creating this new community, a school with a K, which will be a place for people to meet free of charge and talk and connect. And of course, there are online groups and there are festivals you can go to. All of this hugely benefits you because those personal relationships will make a big difference. You'll find out about other opportunities and events and places you should go, and start going to US festivals, and you're like, oh, there's this great one in Denmark, oh, there's a great one in Italy and Croatia, and you start going around there, or over in Taiwan to Vocal Asia, and then start spreading your name and arranging internationally as you're reaching out to all these things as well. I think the biggest problem that young arrangers or young musicians of any kind have is they think like, well, I'm good, so then like my phone will ring. No, it's called the business of music, and you have to spend as much time on the business as you do the music. And my son, who I'm so proud of, is 26 now, and he's starting to score full-length television shows and movies. He graduated a few years ago, and he's just been hustling. And a lot of his friends, they gave up on music and whatever. And the difference is not that they weren't talented, but it's that he's being so smart, informational interviewing, reaching out to people, using AI to help find movies that are in post-production, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this is to say, spend time on that business side as well. And, hopefully when you graduate, you'll be able to support yourself as an arranger. That is actually what I was able to do. I walked out of Tufts University and the New England Conservatory of Music, and I was fully supporting myself on arranging, which allowed me to start the Contemporary Acapella Society of America and the house checks, et cetera, et cetera. It was the arranging that paid for it. Not many are able to do that, but,
As that this Zoom call was timed. So I think I have to, I have to wrap it up here. So,
Okey-doke.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it so much. And it's so nice to hear from like somebody who's actually in the industry, because a lot of them to hear from a concrete source about this industry.
In the future, please reach out, and I hope these little tips work for you, and stay in touch. And come join the school too. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.